Genesis 1 is probably one of the most famous chapters in the Bible. Even people who've never opened a Bible usually know the line, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." But Genesis 1 isn't just explaining how the world began. It's introducing us to who God is. Before anything existed, before stars, planets, or time itself, God was already there. And the earth is described as formless and empty, covered in darkness and deep waters. Then everything changes when God speaks. God says, "Let there be light," and instantly, light appears. What's interesting is that the sun hasn't even been created yet. Genesis is showing that God himself is the source of light and order. God separates light from darkness, creating day and night. And this becomes a pattern throughout the chapter. God brings order out of chaos. On the second day, God separates the waters and creates the sky. To ancient people, this represented God bringing structure to the universe. Again, creation isn't random in Genesis. Everything is intentional and organized by God. Then dry land appears. The seas are gathered together, and suddenly the earth begins producing plants, trees, and vegetation. Life starts growing everywhere. And after creating each part of the world, Genesis repeats the same phrase. "And God saw that it was good." That line matters because the Bible presents creation as something good and meaningful. Next, God creates the sun, moon, and stars. And this part is really important historically. Many ancient civilizations worshiped the sun and stars as gods. But Genesis completely rejects that idea. The stars aren't divine beings. They're simply creations placed in the sky by God. The universe itself points back to its creator. On the fifth day, God fills the oceans with living creatures and the skies with birds. For the first time, God blesses living creatures and tells them to multiply. Creation is full of life because God gives it life. Then comes the climax of the chapter, humanity. Genesis says humans were made in the image of God. That's one of the most important ideas in the entire Bible. Human value doesn't come from wealth, power, or status. Every person matters because every person reflects something about God. And in the ancient world, that idea was revolutionary. Most cultures believed only kings were chosen by the gods. Genesis says all humanity has dignity. Christians also see Genesis 1 as connected to Jesus. The Gospel of John begins with the words, "In the beginning was the Word." John is directly connecting Jesus to creation itself. For Christians, Genesis is the beginning of a much larger story, one that eventually leads to Christ and redemption. Genesis 1 ultimately shows a God who creates with purpose, brings light into darkness, and gives humanity meaning. And thousands of years later, those opening words still remain powerful.